One of the fundamental building blocks of the internet are hyperlinks, or for short, just links. So links are what actually enables the internet to be a World Wide Web. So without links between pages, there would be no web. And so let's now learn how to place links on our own web pages. Now we can place links into two big categories. The first category is links that point to other pages within our own website. So let's say that here in our website, the Code Magazine, we had another blog post. So we could then create a link from this page to that other page, right? Now, on the other hand, the other category is links that point to outside of our website. So for example, if I placed a link to udemy.com here on this page, then that of course would be a link to the outside of our website, right? Now we do create these two types of links in the exact same way in HTML, but there's still some kinds of particularities that we need to be aware of. And so let's now actually start with the second kind of link that I was describing, which point outwards of our own website. So what I have here in the demo is that here at the end of this part, so of this what is HTML section, I have a link to the MDN web docs. So this is basically a website where you can learn all about HTML and also CSS and JavaScript. And actually, I will show you this site a little bit better in the next section, because it's important as a web developer to know how to use and find information here in this web documentations page. So what we want is to grab the link of that. And so to do that, just Google MDN, which stands for Mozilla Developer Network, and then just HTML. And the exact URL that we're going to use here doesn't really matter. All we want is to have some URL that points outside of our own page, right? So let's just grab this one here, which was the first Google result. So I'm copying it. And again, keep in mind that this is called a URL. So as you know, every single website on the internet has its own URL. And so that is what we need in order to create a link to that page. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, we want to put that right here after this unordered list, right? Let's see in the demo. Yeah, so right here after the ordered list. So that's here. So to create a link in HTML, we use the A element, which stands for anchor. So technically, a hyperlink or a link is actually called anchor in HTML. So it is an anchor element. We can close it. Then we can specify some content, and then we can, or we have to actually close it. So let's start by doing that. Now, as for the content of the link, what we specify here is actually the text that we want to be displayed on the page. So the text of the link. So in this case, that is this MDN web docs. All right, so MDN web docs. But now, what about the URL where we want this link to point to? Well, for that, we need to once again use an attribute. So in this case, it is the href attribute. Then equal, double quotes, and then we can simply paste that URL that we copied right here. And that's actually it. So if I give it a save now, and then reload our page here, then here is our link. And you see it down there, so here in this corner, that when I hover it, it actually shows me the URL. And then when I click it, our page goes there. Great. And so that is actually already the basics of creating a link. Very simple, right? Now we want this link here to actually be like inside of this text. So inside of one more paragraph here. right? So let's create that paragraph. So you can learn more at, and then this link here is basically just a continuation of the text in here. So inside of this paragraph. So we can finish our sentence here and then close up our paragraph as usual. And so now that looks just like in the original one, right? Now notice what happens here once again when I click it. So you see that we navigated directly to this page and now our own page disappeared. So of course we can go back here, but sometimes what we want to do is to open a link in a new tab. So let me also show you how we can do that. And of course we don't always want that. So many times we actually want the page to really move to the URL that we specified here, but also sometimes it's useful to keep the page open and simply open the URL in a new tab. And we can do that by specifying the target attribute, then the quotes as always, and then this one looks a bit weird. So it's underscore and then blank. So give that a save. And when we reload, it will look the same, but the behavior should have changed. And indeed, notice how it opened a new tab and our original one is still open. Great. So that worked. And so we have now a link that points to a URL that is outside of our own website. But now about that first scenario where we want to link to an internal page, basically. Let's do that now. And going back again to our demo, we have here this example. So in the very beginning, right after the main heading, we have these links here. And so these are supposed to be links that point to pages that are part of this blog. So let's now create this first link here, so blog, and also create a new page where we can actually link to. Okay, and so creating a new page is as simple as creating a new HTML document. So let's open up again our sidebar by clicking here, and then we see our Explorer here basically with all the files. And then again, we create a new file in this icon here, and let's call it blog.html this time. And now we could use this cheat here to create the HTML structure, but actually let's practice a little bit here again. And if you want, you can even pause the video and type it out on your own, but I will just do it here very fast now. So HTML, then we need to close it, of course. Now inside of the HTML, remember we have the head. Inside of the head, we have a title usually. And this one, let's just call it like this, blog. So just uppercase to make it really obvious. And you see that this is really just a very bare bones structure, just a head with a title. And actually the same for the body, which remember is the part that is going to be visible in the browser. So here I will simply specify an h2 element and close it also here. And let's call this one blog as well. Okay, we still need to close the body, of course. And that's it. Let's give it a save. And so here we have a very simple, very bare bones blog HTML document. But now with that in place, we can create a hyperlink or a link right here in this index.html, which will point to that blog.html. And so the browser will then navigate to that page. So let's do it right here after the h1. And so the anchor element, then we need the href. And so now what we do here, instead of specifying a URL, is to specify the name of the HTML file that we want to go to. And so in this case, it is of course this blog.html. blog.html that we just created. Then here, as the content of the element, let's just write blog again, and then close it as always. Give it a save. Here is our beautiful link. And now watch what happens as I click it. Bam! We are now at blog. And you can see that also here in the URL bar. So which is now all of this file, and so all of this path, and then at the end blog.html. Right? Now to go back, we could of course click here on this back button, but what we could also do is to add a link here which simply points back to index.html. Right? That sounds like a nice idea, doesn't it? So let's come back here to blog.html, and as yet another challenge, now I want you to actually create this link on your own. So pause the video here and create a link that points back to index.html. So, did you manage to do that? Or at least try it? Well, I sure hope so. But anyway, of course we use the A element again, then we specify href, and well, to go back, we just say index.html. And then here we can specify any text, which I didn't tell you which one, because it doesn't really matter. Let's just say back to home, or something like that. Give it a save. And now once we reload it, we have our link, we can click it, and so now we can basically go back and forth between these two pages because they're now connected through these links. So we can go to the blog, we can go back and forth, and so on and so forth. All right, so let's close up this one here. We don't need it anymore. And just to finish, we can also actually specify a link that doesn't go anywhere. So let me show that to you as well. So let's just write the content first. And here I have challenges, I think, in the demo. So we have challenges, Flexbox, and CSS Grid. So that's challenges. But watch what happens now when I reload the page like this. So you see that it only says challenges, but notice how it's just normal text. It's not blue and not underlined, so it's clearly not a link, right? So even though it is actually an anchor element. But what makes an anchor element really a link is the href property. And so we really need to specify it. Otherwise, it is not a link at all. It is then just an anchor, which is not really useful. Now, but what if we don't want this to point anywhere, as I was saying? Well, the solution to that is to specify this hash symbol right here, right? So if I now save it and reload, then we are back to this being a link, actually. It just doesn't point anywhere. What happens when you click on this link is that basically it goes back to the top of this current page, okay? And a little bit later in the course, we will actually make use of this behavior. But for now, I just want you to know that this is how we can specify links when we don't have any URL yet for them or don't have any page. So basically, this is like a placeholder link. Okay, and so let's just copy this here twice. There's no need to write it again. But of course, if you want, you can write it again. So just for this Flexbox and CSS Grid. So just to make that navigation look a bit more like complete. But all of these links, they should not point anywhere. Okay, and this is how you specify links or hyperlinks or anchors, as we can also call them, in HTML. So this is a really important part of the web, as I said in the very beginning. And so make sure that you understand how they work and how we place them inside our own web pages.